The United States entered the conflict between Israel and Iran over the weekend with American warplanes and submarines targeting 3 Iranian facilities in Iran. This, of course, to thwart the Islamic Republic from being able to build nuclear bombs. Now, here to provide some context and commentary is editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, who joins us from Los Angeles. Lisa, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeanette.
Okay, so Lisa, I understand there, on top of all of this, there is some breaking news. I understand that Iranian missiles are targeting back at the United States. What's happening right now?
Right, as expected, we were waiting for some sort of retaliation. The United States asked their personnel in the Middle East to be on alert, and in particular, Qatar, where is our most significant base with about 10,000 or more personnel. At that base, they were asked to evacuate hours ago, and right now we just got word that about 6 to 10 missiles were shot by the Islamic Republic in the direction of our U.S. base there in Qatar. So waiting to hear about the fallout, but we did see some preliminary and unconfirmed videos about the sky space over Qatar. A lot of those missiles being intercepted, of course, and we'll see what this means. Obviously, this is that saving face from the Islamic Republic, retaliation for the U.S. Targeted precision attacks on their nuclear facilities over the weekend, something else we had anticipated, but obviously an escalation in this war nonetheless.
Yeah. Now, Iran, of course, had vowed to respond to the U.S., but Trump warned that any Iranian retaliation against U.S. assets, quote, will be met with even greater force than what was unleashed. And now we have North Korea strongly condemning the U.S. attack on Iran, calling it a violation of sovereignty on one of its only allies. So, Lisa, how serious do you think this could get? Could this involve other countries like North Korea?
The good news here is no one really, either side, wants an escalation in all of this. Obviously, if we look at all the players involved, you have the Israelis that are just fighting, obviously, for their existential security. Obviously, their neighbor wanting them off the map is not a good idea to have them have nuclear weapons. So they had to take that defensive position. The United States coming in as well, understanding that the Islamic Republic has been a threat for 46 years, decades of putting money and resources into proxies that have killed Americans. So they obviously have American blood on their hands, and not to mention the operatives that are here in the United States that we know about, also their lobbies, their propaganda campaigns, all of it. So this has been determined to be an American issue, also a core national security issue for us here as well. The United States got involved. And then you look at the Islamic Republic. Look, they are sadistic. They are not suicidal. They are not in this to escalate and to be literally blown away in that sense, to get them out of power. They want to stay. So if self-preservation is their priority, they don't want this to escalate. They actually want to save face. They want to serve up that proverbial slap on the wrist, which they just did. And we'll see what the American reaction will be. In the meantime, the Israelis have continued with their very targeted attacks on Iran soil, which has been a first in this type of unilateral way to use the intel that they have gathered for years on these many sites, and actually taking it beyond the sites. So we know that Israel was targeting the nuclear and the military assets on Iranian soil, but they have done 2 or 3 things to make us believe that they are actually after the regime as a whole. They targeted a broadcast of the regime, an appendage. The regime has these propaganda arms. A woman in the middle of her broadcast, spewing on, blustering, all that regime propaganda, that news station was taken out. We also saw this morning an attack at the doors of Evin Prison. Evin Prison is a notorious prison that houses a lot of the political dissidents that have been rounded up by the regime and put there to be silenced. People are put into jail for for a Facebook post, for showing their hair, for singing a song. So I just want the audience to understand what kind of regime we're up against. So for the Israelis to basically blast open the door of that prison, how symbolic to say, we want to free your prisoners, we want to give them a better future, and this is the way we're going to do it. So it was basically escalating in a way that brings in the people of Iran and not just focusing on the military and nuclear facilities.
Yeah, and we did see there was some dramatic footage of that Israeli attack on that notorious prison, blowing the doors right off the hinges. It looked like, and you had mentioned that it's not over yet because Israel also, continuing to unleash their force on it. I'm understanding that just Monday, Iran's nuclear site at Fordow was hit again. Israel unleashed strikes on the roads leading to the underground facility following that massive U.S. attack over the weekend. So clearly, it's not over, Lisa.
So the issue in the aftermath of both Israeli and American strikes on these nuclear facilities is that we don't have the most accurate damage assessment. How can we be sure of what percentage of these sites were taken out and what was removed or continues to be moved from place to place? And in what way will we leave any sort of residual that will allow Iran's regime to continue to build on its nuclear program? That being the question, now the Israelis began to bomb around the area so that it would be difficult to remove any of this nuclear material from place to place, again, allowing them to give this nuclear material a second life.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I believe a top expert on the Iran nuclear program believes that the Iranian regime's atomic program has been obliterated by Saturday night's strike by the U.S. So is this what you're hearing, or could there still be more facilities out there or more hidden materials to build, weapons? Did Trump maybe give them too much warning to hide anything? What are you thinking?
Perhaps. And look, this is not something, the fact that they have 12 sites and that Fordow or Isfahan are more complex, challenging sites where they go underground, the regime knew that such a day may be on the horizon, where Israel and the United States may want to take out their facilities because of their rogue, kind of chest thumping that we will have a nuclear weapon when nobody wants them to have a nuclear weapon. And it is a danger to all, particularly those in the region, for them to have a nuclear weapon. So they perhaps knew this day was coming and were moving material from place to place. A lot of people believe that a large percentage of their nuclear program was taken out. I'm hearing north of 90% by some accounts. And because of that uncertainty, because again, any residual would mean that they would pause and rebuild, because of that uncertainty, experts want to be very careful with how that confirmation of, yes, we could be certain that their nuclear program is done, there will not start again. Look, a significant portion of it has been taken out. That's a fact. A significant portion of their proxies have been taken out. They have been significantly diminished. These are all facts, but to what extent can they have 9 lives, these mullahs, right? We've watched them for 46 years continue to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. You're talking about an alcoholic who has been, their stash of alcohol has been taken away, but will they have access to another bottle anytime soon is the question. So, what we're waiting to see, and I think that what Israel is doing when it does have that kind of dominance over Iran airspace is actually a very prudent move to make sure that, and I want to stop to say, nobody wants war. The Iranians have endured enough. But the fact that Israel has been able to be so precise in so many of these campaigns, truly precise. And you hear that from the Iranian people. We're okay. I mean, they don't have bomb shelters. The government's not helping. The government's actually targeting Iranian people, accusing them of spying for Israel, accusing them of coming out onto the streets. And there will be obviously consequences for those kinds of protests out on the streets. But that being said, Israel has to do what it needs to do for its own security going forward. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You hear that from so many of the leadership in Israel. And because they have access to that airspace, they need to take out what they can take out to truly and significantly diminish the power of this government as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And then, Lisa, we have U.S. Democrats questioning the legality of the strikes, with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying, quote, "No president should be allowed to unilaterally march this nation into something as consequential as war with erratic threats and no strategy." What do you think?
Jeanette, if this was 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would have bipartisan support on a major national security threat that really endangers all Americans across the board and our assets in the region. It's not just a gift to Israel that we got involved in this war. It's not because Donald Trump is is a warmonger that we got involved in this war. There are actual assessments about this. We have quotes from Hillary Clinton and others in the past who have talked about really going after Iran and bombing Iran because of their nuclear weapons program, because of the rogue nature of the regime, because of the proxies that have targeted American assets for so many years. So to really put this as a Trump issue, it's divisive. It's horrible to think that we are at a time where Americans who are in a position of leadership would rather target our president than to stand behind him against a rogue enemy. That being said, we also have the media. We have college campus protests that have always taken the wrong side. This is a disease of leftism that just blames us, and really supports those who rape and pour acid on the faces of women who dare to speak out, who don't allow a woman who is being raped to go against her rapist in a court of law, where the value of a woman is half that of a man in the court of law. These are so-called feminists. These are so-called champions of gay rights when gay people are thrown off buildings and hanged for their sexual orientation. I mean, there is so much to break down here, but to say that, do your research before you open up your mouth. Just don't go down the list of social justice issues that you believe are social justice issues. I've been doing this for such a long time, and to see this evolution here at home about the positioning of where we are on foreign policy just because of our divide here at home, it's just asinine. And I think it's very damaging. And I hope that this next generation really shapes up, not to get their news from TikTok and Instagram, but to really read about the history, the context, and what we're up against when we're dealing with our enemies.
Yeah, it seems that's where everyone's getting their news from these days, unfortunately, the little sound bites on TikTok there. But Lisa, we have leaders hinting and arguing about this potential fall of the Iranian government. We've got like Senator Marco Rubio saying that it was not attack on Iran, not an attack on the Iranian people. And this was not a regime change move. And then we've got Trump saying on his social media that, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? So we've got some argument there. So Lisa, if the government did fall, would that leave a power vacuum, allowing someone maybe worse to take over?
That's always the possibility and the risk. But in the case of Iran, I just wrote an op-ed a couple of weeks ago before this war started saying not all regime changes are created equal. We're dealing with a Western world, particularly here in the United States, and particularly the Republicans who have PTSD, that are triggered by the term regime change because of our failures in Iraq and Syria. And you can perhaps add Libya and Afghanistan to that list as well. These are places where we did not perhaps import regime change, but we saw that our involvement brought about some negative consequences of regime change. And for that reason, we stay away from those terms. We do what we need to do, but we won't touch regime change for fear that it will get worse. We have to look at Iran as a very, very different scenario. For over 46 years, let's say the majority of 20 of those years, we have seen uprisings by the Iranian people that have come out onto the streets saying that they don't have freedoms, they want democracy, they want secularism, they don't want to live under Sharia law, that they have never felt that this government, the mullahs, this theocracy represents them and what they want. Majority of the country, so 85% of 90 million people don't want this government. And as the years have gone by, when you're watching these protests, they have evolved. So we're even seeing those protests against the government in clerical cities that have always been traditionally with the government, more religious, more conservative, and now they're turning on the government as well. So I do think that the people are very different from the government. That has been said, and I think that part of it, I do appreciate that the Trump administration does come out and does differentiate between the people and the government. The people of Iran certainly do appreciate that, and to give them the space. Look, regime change always has to come from within, but we do know that they do want democracy. They do want secularism. They do want their rights, and that will be, better for the entire region. Imagine the potential that could be unleashed in a free and economy that the Iran and Iranian people could present to the world and to the region. So I think it's a win-win for everyone involved, including the United States. It's not something, again, that we would want to steer, but we would want to help support the Iranian people in their endeavor in really designing their own future.
Editor-in-Chief of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us today from Los Angeles.
Thank you for having me.